Alright, so I recently finished up BoxBoy plus BoxGirl. I remember back before the Switch, going to the 3DS eShop every now and again, and I feel like this series was constantly coming up for whatever reason. I think I looked it up and there was like 3 different entries on that system. But when I saw a demo pop up on Switch later on, I decided to check it out, and I really enjoyed the concept. I thought there was some fun potential there. So I eventually bought it and finally got around to playing it right now. I feel like finding out that the Kirby studio HAL was behind it as well. They normally put out good shit, so you had confidence that it was probably, a solid game, especially since this is like the first series they've really given a decent amount of attention to outside of Kirby in a really long time. I will say you could even still see some of that Kirby HAL DNA in this game with having a cute but simplistically designed protagonist. I feel like the story itself and its presentation, like I could easily see a Kirby game doing the same thing. And even the gameplay itself, Kirby is known for doing such a great job having, a relatively on the easier side game, but still being, fun and engaging enough to just have, a mass appeal. Not for everyone, but overall, that's a very delicate balance that HAL does very well, and they do it yet again here. Something that kind of surprised me, because the one thing I was thinking of when I first started this game was that I was getting kind of mobile puzzle game vibes for whatever reason. Come to find out, the one other game outside of Kirby that HAL put out recently, Part-Time UFO, did get an Android iOS release. So it just seems a little odd that they never bothered to try that with this game too. I feel like that could maybe be a bit of a missed opportunity. I also kind of got Tetris-y vibes from it. Like, I can almost imagine them, getting the Tetris license and having this as sort of a Tetris spin-off. I don't know if HAL's ever really worked with Tetris before. I know there was that weird, just in general, with the SNES and Genesis, some, licensing things with some puzzle games and that. I don't know if they were ever involved in that. If that sort of thing would be a reunion. Although, at the end of the day, probably better off as your own thing here and not, risk losing the IP. I don't know, maybe some sort of future entry could sort of collaborate between the two. I think it would fit well. Oh, something I feel like I should definitely note, since I almost made a mistake and missed out on a lot of content in the game, was that A Tale for Two is playable with one controller. I remember kind of thinking about it when thought I was pretty much done with the game, and I was like, can I maybe, do it a Joy-Con in each hand and sort of make it work? Only to, just go into the menu for A Tale for Two and just see, I don't even need to bother figuring out some sort of weird way to make it work. And it is a core control with one person. The second player doesn't move at all, which I kind of get, but at the same time, you can kind of work around it. Like I was able to, put player 2 on top of player 1, or have player 1 push player 2 to, not get too repetitious with movement. But it would be nice to have some sort of command or control to where maybe, they can follow you, or if you select an area, they can kind of go that direction. Might be a little more effort, though, than it's worth, especially for a smaller title. That's not to say, though, that you don't get your money's worth. I think my playthrough through everything was about 15 hours. I think the game itself was only 10, not on sale. But yeah, in the game itself, you have about a dozen worlds in each of the 3 different sections. Each world has its own gimmick. The only one I really didn't like, and I'm not saying it shouldn't have been here, because I think it obviously fits well for this sort of thing, were the ones that sort of involved moving platforms, and I don't know, it was just annoying if you mess up. Well, now you gotta wait, for, the platforms or whatever to sort of land back in the place that you need them to land in. And it is a relatively slower paced game, so. And once again, they're able to do some, fun things with the puzzles and that there, but you almost wish there was like a speed up button or something, I was kind of wondering when playing the game how it would be if they mixed some of the gimmicks a little more. Like you would have your primary gimmick for the world and maybe it would mesh with one other gimmick in one of the levels. But that was about it. I was wondering how it would be like if they went, a little more aggressive and they were more rapid firing through the gimmicks, or maybe you have to deal with, 3 or 4 at once. Wound up being one of those things where it was, careful what you wish for. Because the 3rd section you eventually unlock does do that a little more. And man, it gets really tough, honestly. Like, I almost completely stopped, honestly. It got to a point where I felt like I was consulting a guide more than playing the actual game, because I'm not even that good at these kinds of games anyway. I did watch, just a guide of someone playing through it, and I eventually changed my mind, and I did go through those levels, but I did it with all of the assist items, so you just sort of, cheese it and make it super easy or more in line with, the rest of the game. Which, once again, not the same as playing through it properly, but if it's between that or, just kind of skipping the rest of the game, I would rather do that. I think I think that was only for the last, 4-ish worlds before I officially gave up on the last Tall Tale stuff. I also didn't do the challenges they had. I did collect all of the collectibles. I don't remember what they were. There's just certain medals you have to reach a certain area to collect. I did do all of them, but I didn't do, there's challenges for doing levels with minimum boxes. I just wasn't that into it to dive into that whole thing, because that would really stretch things out. But hey, at the same time, if you really get into it, like I said, there is a lot to do for comparison to with a Tall Tale. I think for the main game, the other 2 paths, I only needed to consult a guide. And like I said, there's a lot of levels in the game. Probably less than a handful of times, but then on a Tall Tale, it was just about getting to it where it was every single level around, like I said, that World 9, World 10, before I gave up on doing it the right way. But like I said, I did have fun. It was fun, play through once. I don't know if I would ever really come back again. Like I said, I don't know if I really, got that into it. Hell, I don't even know if you can come back to the 3DS games now with the eShop gone. I'm not sure if they ever got physical releases, which is, really frustrating, but that's a whole other topic.